I'm sorry this is so late. I would say I had a busy day, but I really didn't. But it was very windy today and a pretty day. Pop and I just went to the park and we saw the cherry blossoms in Alt Park. They were really pretty. I'll send your mom some pictures so they can show you. So, if you're already in bed, I'm so sorry. Maybe you can have a breakfast story and then I'll do something earlier tomorrow. Okay? Tonight we're going to talk about Rags. Look, this is Rags. He's a dog. Rags. Mr. Calibanny, the grocer, liked dogs. He wanted one for a pet, but his wife was not fond of dogs. That's Mr. Calibanny. Do you know what a grocer is? That's the person that works at the grocery store where you go and shop for your food. And there's a dog that he's watching walk by. One morning, Mr. Smelt, the fisherman across the street, ran out of his store shouting, "Help! I've been robbed!" "It wouldn't have happened if you'd kept a watchdog," yelled Mrs. Smelt. Well, that won't happen to us. So there's Mr. and Mrs. Smelt. "That won't happen to us," said Mr. Calibanny the grocer. "I'm going to the pet shop right now to get the biggest, fiercest watchdog." "You know, I don't like dogs," said Mrs. Calibanny. That's Mrs. Calibanny right there. See her? "I want the biggest watchdog you have," Mr. Calibanny told the man at the pet shop. "Here's a puppy who will grow up to be the biggest dog you've ever seen," said the man. He handed Mr. Calibanny a furry bundle to take home in his pocket. Look at it. Isn't it so cute? "So, this is the big, fierce watchdog," laughed Mrs. Calibanny. "He looks like a bundle of rags." And from then on, they called the dog Rags. Mrs. Calibanny made the puppy a nice warm meal. Then she sewed him a little rag doll and stuffed it with dried beans. The puppy took it in his teeth and shook it playfully. He really liked that doll. The first night in the store, the little watchdog was afraid of the dark. He cried and cried. "Hush, Rags. You come into bed with us and bring your dolly." Rags grew fast. He ate and grew and grew. When the beanbag wasn't in Rags' teeth, he made sure it was close to his paw. If the doll disappeared for even a moment, Rags would howl and howl. "Humph! Some watchdog," sniffed Mrs. Calibanny. Rags grew so big that a wag of his tail would knock down a tower of soup cans. He knocked him down with his tail. "Now that he's so big, when is he going to start being fierce?" asked Mrs. Calibanny. "Aw, pretty soon," her husband promised. "He'll toughen up when he runs around with other dogs," said Mrs. Calibanny. But Rags ran away from the first dog he saw. Look how little that dog is. Rags ran away from cats, too, even inside his own store. He ran away from mice and spiders and even Mrs. Calibanny's broom. I don't think he likes anything. In fact, Rags felt safer off the floor. He jumped up on the counter with his beanbag doll and curled up beside the cash register. "Look, Rags is guarding the money like a real watchdog," said Mr. Calibanny proudly. Rags spent most of his time there. "Oh, well," said Mrs. Calibanny. "At least he isn't underfoot. Like he's up there on the counter." Underfoot means in the way, like down on the floor where your feet are. But one day, Rags upset a jar of honey. He got some sticky dollar bills in his mouth by mistake. He ate up $7. Mrs. Calibanny was very angry. Now he's eating the very money he's supposed to guard. He goes away first thing in the morning. Like he dropped honey on the dollars. Rags, you're no good. But I'm sure going to miss you, said Mr. Calibanny sadly. Rags sniffled a bit. Then he dropped his beanbag doll on the cash register and fell asleep. I don't think he knew what they were talking about. The grocer went out the back door to empty the garbage. Out there in the night, a robber was waiting. He nipped in the door as soon as Mr. Calibanny turned his back. He tiptoed over to the cash register. There he is, bad guy. He was not afraid of Rags, who was fast asleep. He had heard all about Rags. But when the robber tossed the beanbag doll to the floor, Rags woke up. Rags was angry. He leaped at the robber and knocked him down. Then he sat on him and barked. Mr. Calibanny heard Rags barking and ran into the store. He saw the robber and shouted, "Help! Police!" When Officer Duffy got there, Rags was still sitting on top of the robber, his beanbag in his mouth. Rags was a hero. His picture appeared in the newspaper. I told you he'd grow into a big, fierce watchdog, said Mr. Calibanny proudly. And he did, agreed Mrs. Calibanny, smiling at Rags. Rags just wagged his tail happily and shook his beanbag doll. So I guess they kept him because he did what they wanted him to do anyway. I don't think he knew he was doing it, but that's okay. He just really loves his doll. Do you have a toy that you really love and you like to play with all the time? All right, sleep tight. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Say bye. Can you see you? There he is. Say bye.
Okay.
Oh, he said bye. I love you. Bye.